All
All
right.
right. Take it away, sir.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me here. Um, so, like Steve mentioned, I am now with a new company. I started independently. It's just me, so party of one for this company, and the whole story behind Cannon Fire. It's an aggressive name, and so when I tell people about it, they go, "What does this mean? What are we doing?" First of all, is it Fry or it's Fire with a Y? Does it have to do with the Fire Festival? No, none of that. So the idea behind the name is a lot of the work that I've done in my career as a consultant has really driven me deep into some historical works, philosophy, history, um, literature, to see what is there in the kind of world canon, the collection of works that make up the world canon. What is the wisdom from that? And how is that wisdom best applied in a modern context? So the things that I have found work the best with clients that I'm working with are not just things that are novel, but things that are easily applied in novel circumstances that have been valuable over the course of history, over the course of time. And so Cannon Fire is really built on that. What are those foundational principles that have served civilization through centuries all across the world? And how can we utilize that wisdom in a modern context? So canon is from the world canon, and fire being kind of the illumination that we can get from that. So that's kind of my approach to consulting now and with this new venture, and why I started it is to really go in that direction. So one of the things that you might notice about me as we go through this is I'm really big on uh, keeping things as simple as possible and no simpler. What is the most simple way that we can understand a concept, apply a concept, and get value from it without it being so simple it loses all meaning, right? We can be overly simplistic, and it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but that doesn't do anything for me. Or we can be overly complex and yeah, that's all great and it might work, but I don't have time to memorize a new 37-step process to be able to do my process mapping, right? So I try to balance that well and say, what is the core of something, the essence of it, and how can I help people find that, see that, and utilize it? So that's really my approach to this. One of the other things that I'll just say about the way that I do my work is I am, whenever I work with anyone, right, I am never the expert in their context, and I never will be. So it's never my job to come in into anywhere and say, here's how you should do things. It is my job to be able to listen, reflect back what I'm hearing, and help organize what I'm hearing in that context, reflect that back in an organized way that helps you make the most sense of how to do the next best thing in your context. Right. So all of the things that I'm going to share today are kind of based on that. How can I help you understand your context better so you can make better choices about what to do within that context? I might say some things, and your initial reaction might be like, that's ridiculous. That would never help me. That would never work. I hope that if that happens, you tell me, because then I can figure out, okay, what would work there, what would be helpful, or I'll find out that I just did a really bad job explaining that, and then I can become a better, instructor, facilitator, all of those things. So please challenge this content, challenge me, ask questions. Um, I think that's the way that we'll be able to get the most out of this time together. Before I get started, any questions about any of that stuff that I just mentioned or about me personally? Some people care about my background, some people don't. No. I'm a Pisces, in case you're wondering.
I was wondering, what exactly is your new venture?
It is Cannon Fire. So the Cannon Fire Consulting is the new venture. So it's just a consulting firm of just me, party of one, independent consultant out there
Okay.
helping people do the things. Yeah. Right. So let's go to the content. And then I will make the slides available, make sure they get to Steve so they can get sent out and you can have them. Um, so make sure we get that. I'll pay attention to the chat as well. et cetera, et cetera. So you can always just unmute yourself and start talking until I shut up and listen to you. You can use the raise your hand feature. You can put stuff in chat, whatever is good. Okay. So one of the things that I have found, well, let me just quick show of hands, use the raise your hand feature. How many people here are actively using AI or are being encouraged by your organizations to use more AI? Yes, yes, almost everyone. All right. I would be curious, and maybe chat is the best way to do this. Let's bring my chat up. In chat, scale of 1 to 5, 5 being I'm so good at AI, I should be teaching everyone else how to use it because it's amazing. And then 1 being if I have to use AI one more time, I might quit my job. What's the level of comfort, ability? We got a 3, we got a 5, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so excellent. No one's at like a 1. No one's trying to get out of the way. Just enough to be dangerous, right? Okay, excellent, excellent. So since you are all using this and are well versed in it, one of the things that you may have heard some version of what I'm about to say. AI is, you know what? I'm actually not even going to get there. I'm going to get there later. Here we go. So this is all about when we're using AI or not using AI. You're doing drawing on me? That's fine. You can do that too. You can annotate. Um, it's not good enough to support much work at this time for me. Fair enough. Fair enough, David. So we're going to talk about the foundation that helps enable better AI usage. And that's what the strategic thinking principles before using AI. You've all heard some version of garbage in, garbage out. We're going to talk more about that throughout today. Is how can I make sure that if I'm using AI, when I'm using AI, it is actually helping me and not hurting me. So some of you may have seen this quote. If you're an Elon Musk fan, you're welcome. If you hate Elon Musk, I'm sorry. But he said the most common error of a smart engineer is to optimize a thing that should not exist. So the idea is if we have optimization, automation, a lot of things that we use AI for, get something done faster, efficiency. If we just start applying that willy-nilly, what we're going to be doing is optimizing things that should not exist in the first place. So we're getting better at wasting our time, right? We're getting efficient at wasting our time. We don't want to do that. And for those of you that hate Elon Musk or are just not a fan, we can have Donald Knuth, who basically said premature optimization is the root of all evil. So before we optimize, we want to make sure we rationalize what is the thing that we're trying to do? Is it valuable? Do we understand it well? And then automate. A lot of different ways to do this. But premature optimization, premature integration of AI, premature use of AI creates way more problems than it solves, especially when you're doing analysis. We'll talk about that a little bit. Steve here in chat, we have a training class at VSP called Preventing AI Slop, Applying Human Judgment to AI Generated Content. Exactly. This AI slop of, hey, ChatGPT, create market analysis of this thing, make no mistakes, right? The idea that that's going to actually be valuable is very low. Another common phrase that people are using with AI is the human in the loop. How do we make sure we still have humans in the loop evaluating, using judgment, using our rational thinking? So AI, if we think about different ways of doing things, whenever we approach anything, there are 3 elements that are at play. First is the mindset that we are in when we approach that thing. What's our perspective? What's our viewpoint? What's our mindset in terms of what's possible, what's achievable, what's doable, what should my goals be? All of these things can change the outcome of any way I spend my time. Right? My favorite example of this is I can go into an argument with my wife with a mindset of, I care about her, I love her, I'm trying to understand her. I can also go in with a mindset of, she has no idea what she's talking about, and I need to teach her about this thing. One of those mindsets is going to yield much better results, right? So just the mindset I have in approaching something is going to shift the outcome of what happens in that thing. So when we're talking about AI, there's a mindset. If my mindset is, oh, thank goodness, I can just have AI do this for me, I am probably going to get more AI slop, right? If my mindset is, oh, great, I can have AI do a lot of this menial, tedious work, which can free me up to do more creative thinking, that's going to have a different set of results. So we really want to be aware of what's the mindset that we have when we're approaching this. And when we're working with teams or leading other people who are using AI, what is their mindset? Are we all on the same page about this? Right. My boss nicely did a presentation to our team saying not to forget the other AI, analyst intuition. Yes, gut instinct. So, side note here, one of my biggest concerns, personal concerns about AI, is the amount of people I see using it instead of their own skills, practicing with their own skills because they want to be faster. What that's doing is leading to less actual experience, and experience is where you develop gut intuition, right? Since this doesn't feel right, this seems off. If you're not putting the reps in, it's really hard to spot the errors in AI. But people who have, have 20-year careers, they'll look at something AI generates and go, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. They can see it, right? Just because they have an intuition through the experience. So really important, especially if you're working with junior intro level people, force them to do it without AI when they're training. Then let them use AI once they've developed a feel for it. Anyway, that's my quick aside. So we got mindset. Then we have skill set. We can develop and improve skills to be able to get better at achieving a result. So my skills around requirements gathering, my skills around creating problem statements, my skills around influencing people, right? Managing up. These are all skills I can develop that can help me achieve better results. So I've got a mindset and I've got a skill set. My mindset, like I said, going into a conversation with my wife, that's going to change things. My skill set, how have I practiced, emotional intelligence and empathic listening, right? These are skills I can develop that can help me achieve a desired result. And then finally, we've got tools. And tools, by definition, are things that help us get leverage, that help us do more work output with less effort. That's what a tool does. And so AI falls squarely in this tool set. Now, the thing about tools is that they are only effective when used appropriately and in the right context. If I need to chop wood, I shouldn't get a screwdriver, right? I should get an axe. If I need to chop wood, I probably shouldn't get a chainsaw, right? And if I use an axe inappropriately, it becomes a weapon. So tools have a very narrow band where they are being used appropriately to add the value I get from that tool. Using the wrong tool at the wrong time could actually end up doing way more damage. And so this is the thing with AI is really understanding as a tool, when is it appropriate and what do I need to be aware of to use it effectively and safely. But having the tool, let's say AI is a chainsaw, for example. Having a chainsaw doesn't let me know how to cut down a big tree. And if you've ever looked at those videos online of people cutting down trees and they fall on the house, right? If I don't understand physics, I'm not going to be able to effectively cut down a tree. It doesn't matter if I have a chainsaw. So there's an underlying skill that I need to develop about the core job functions to be able to appropriately bring in AI. So that's kind of the foundation here that we have that I'm wanting to set for the rest of what we're going to be talking about with the strategic thinking that's going to be most helpful when applying AI. Any questions, thoughts, reflections about any of the stuff that we've been talking about so far? Larry, I see you unmuted yourself. You
No,
want to jump in?
Jason, somehow I'm seeing a meshing those skill set and tool set where they sort of are merged in together. Does that make sense?
Tell me more about it, about how you're seeing that.
Well, you get very good with you learning certain tools, like maybe a lot of analytic skills, analytic sets, analytic things you can use. But your skill set then, as an analyst, is it becomes greater. Well,
Absolutely.
does that make sense? These two sort of feed on. Maybe they feed on each other.
Yeah, yeah. So once I develop a little bit of a skill and then I start using a tool that can reinforce and help continue to develop that skill, and then I might be able to be better able to apply another tool, and there might be this virtuous cycle that goes between them. Absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking. Thanks.
Yeah, I totally see that. Great point. Other thoughts, questions, reflections? Ooh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm gonna try to learn how to use a mouse appropriately. It's my skill set to develop. Okay. So when it comes to strategic thinking, this is the common organizational cycle that I see. And I have the caveat here, at least among organizations that ask me to facilitate strategic planning or they're having some sort of strategic issue. And the issue is this. People are doing their work. They're getting things done day to day. All of a sudden, a problem pops up. And they're like, oh, that's a problem. We should probably figure that out. So then they spend time, energy, and effort diverted from the day to day to be able to resolve that issue, right? The issue is not going to resolve itself. I can't both fix that issue and work on day to day stuff. So I got to divert some resources to the problem. When they're working on that problem, what happens? Another problem pops up. Oh, well, now what do I have to do, right? Now I could divert time to that new problem, but now I'm getting spread a little thin. So I have to while I'm making that decision about where to spend that time, problem one gets on fire. And now I'm really stuck. Do I spend time on problem one, which is now on fire, or problem two before it catches fire? And while I'm making that decision, all these other problems pop up. And now we're stuck just putting out fires, right? So the whole idea here is when we aren't in a place where we're using the right thinking, we're not being strategic in how to allocate resources, and when we're not having strategic conversations about that, we end up just putting out fires. Anyone had similar reactions or, just moving from fire to fire experiences in your jobs and organizations ever? Maybe not now, not currently, but is this brand new to people? Yeah, just one, just me and AJ. Oh, okay, okay. I was like, wow, you guys work in great organizations. I want to come work with you. We are all subject to this, right? I don't think any organization is completely free of this. It's just part of the reality of work. Sometimes it gets way out of hand. Other times it can be managed fairly well. But this can happen. Now, what we said earlier, we don't want to automate or optimize something that shouldn't be done at all. So the instinct for some organizations is to look at all this and say, well, if we just throw AI at this, we'll be able to more efficiently get through these problems. But what that doesn't do is shift the underlying conditions that led to this being the hyper tactical culture that it is. And if we don't understand the culture that led to this chaotic environment, AI is not going to fix that. In fact, it could make it way worse. And so if we want to be able to get the value and the efficiency from AI that it can do for us, we really have to understand what is the culture of decision making and the focus of decision making and thinking that we are bringing AI into. What is it that we are using AI to optimize? We don't want to be using AI to optimize a process we shouldn't be doing at all or that isn't effective. Right? That's the whole goal here. So the better we understand, are we in a hyper tactical, reactive environment and culture? Let's not add AI to that. Let's make sure we are in a strategic, thoughtful, proactive culture and using those foundational principles and bring AI into that so we can do that even better. That's the whole goal here. So the rest of the presentation will be going through kind of what I think those from my perspective, foundational principles are and some ways to use them. Pause here. Any other questions, thoughts, reflections of any of what we're talking about?
I would just add that before even the question of whether you throw AI or any other tool at something, first you should be looking, as you said, if you have to do something, what's causing problems now?
Hmm.
Because I've been in a bunch of situations over the years where if we just improve the process slightly, you can eliminate a lot of the problems, you can improve efficiency. You don't need to automate things, you just need to make some minor improvements, because often a lot of the problems are because a lack of specificity in the rules or the processes,
Hmm.
or a lack of training. People are doing stuff that they don't know how to do well, and if you just attack some of that before you even look at automation, often you can solve a lot of problems before you have to spend technology dollars to solve what should be a human process change.
Yes. A great example of that I ran into. I've done a lot of work with various departments in the state. And one of the things that the state loves to do is add approval checks. And so you end up with these approval chains where you need 17 signatures to buy a pen. That's an exaggeration, but it is not far off from the truth, right? And so one of the projects I was working on is they were saying we need a way to track these approval chains because there's way too much time lost in moving this paper around. This was pre-COVID from all these offices getting these signatures. And the question that I asked was, do we really need all these signatures, right? If we don't need all these signatures, why are we going to automate and find some sort of electronic process for this thing and design it and implement it and all that? Maybe we just only need one of these signatures. So, long story short, they didn't need all those signatures, right? It was from this historic chain of events that led to that. And they're like, well, now it's a problem. Let's add technology to it, as opposed to going back and saying, well, why is this a problem in the first place? Exactly what David's talking about. And I'm sure all of you have some version of a story like that, because that's what we're, here to do is and figure out, like, let's analyze these processes and see what's going on here and be thoughtful about that. So I'm sure you all do that very well already. And let's throw AI, Claude Cowork at everything before understanding the problem. Yeah, people will be more efficient and then the people will solve the problems. It'll be fine. Not so much. Not so much. Right. And then Monica, I'm waiting for those wine questions to kick in. So, whenever you're ready. All right. So strategic thinking principles. These are from my opinion and my perspective, the things that get in well, how do I want to say this? I've used a lot of strategic thinking models, strategic planning models, um, a bunch of them. They're all fairly good, right? But what I found is when I implemented any one of them, balanced scorecard, a McKinsey, whatever the seven, whatever their thing is, all the different ones, people get stuck in the same places. And so the model is not fixing anything. This is very similar to AI. AI is not going to fix the thing. Um, People get stuck in their strategic thinking in the same places. And the first place that I see people get stuck the most and teams get stuck the most is in this idea that it is our job to solve problems. A lot of times cultures get so overwhelmed by that chaos of problems that keep coming up, and there's just wave after wave of issue, and like all hands on this, all hands on this, and it gets so kinetic and frenetic and chaos, and we get into this place where we're like, I just can't wait for there to not be another problem. And that's a mindset. And that mindset becomes really insidious because we start to feel like if everyone would just dot, 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 whatever you want to fill in the blank with that, then we wouldn't have all these problems and things would be smooth. And now my goal, whether or not I'm aware of this consciously, is to remove problems. And that mindset usually tanks morale. We get so frustrated when things don't go right. And that frustration just burns energy, right? It's not good. So the first thing we have to do is start with the base reality that all of us have a job because there's a problem to solve. If there wasn't a problem to solve, why would we pay for things, right? There is something that needs to be done. There is a problem that we need to solve for someone. That's our primary job here. So our goal is to accept that and lean into that. If we're resistant to that idea that like, these problems, I just wish they would go away. I want to get rid of them. We are going to set ourselves up to fail and just to be frustrated. So if a team is really tanking, I just start with this, like, hey, we're all here to solve problems. That's our primary job. We should be excited that there are problems to solve. We got to get to that point mentally. So before I can even be strategic about problems, I have to lean into them and lean into the fact that I'm here to solve problems. That's why I'm here. Once I do that, then I can start being strategic by solving those problems in a prepared way. I can't do number one well if I'm not prepared. So I got to get in that right mindset. I'm here to solve problems. We're here to solve problems. And then I got to say, what are the things I need to do to be prepared for when that next problem comes in? Once I'm in that right mindset and I'm setting up all my preparation, which we'll talk about how to do that. I'm not just going to say like, yeah, you should be prepared. Go do that now. I'm going to give you some ways to think about that. But once we're getting prepared, then we need to make sure that we are pulling the right lever. And lever here, leverage, right? Tool. There are some specific things I can change that are most likely to change my outcome in a significant way. But if I'm pulling the wrong lever, right? If I'm automating the wrong thing, the action is not going to be what I need. The result's not going to be what I need. If I flip the wrong light switch, the light I need to turn on isn't going to turn on, right? So I got to make sure that I'm changing the right things. I'm doing the right things. And then finally, no one person is going to do everything themselves. So we have to be sharing the ownership of the outcomes. If I try to take everything on, or I try to get everything off my plate, you do that, you do that, you do that, I delegate everything, we're not going to be successful. So when I see teams really perform and act strategically and see things coming around the corner and all that, they are teams that are in this mindset that we're here to solve problems. We need to be prepared for that and for things that change. We need to make sure that the actions we take, the levers we pull, are the right ones for the change we need. And we are always sharing the ownership of the outcomes. And if we do these things well, we're going to be successful no matter what other model, AI, anything else that we do. If we don't do these things well, we're really going to run into problems. So questions, thoughts, reflections, challenges.
How do you ensure that that strategic thinking, that question you're asking, doesn't get lost once you move into the AI? Like you don't get in a hole because we can all, or maybe I'm the only one who goes in a Facebook hole, but like you ask one question and then you go down and asking another question and your problem, like you realize you spent a day trying to solve a lot of problems instead of that original problem.
Mhm. So, the what I'm hearing is that through exploration, there's an over focus on exploration that can lead to uh, not wasted time, right? But to the sense that we've lost track of what the higher priority thing should have been or maybe would have been. Am I hearing that right, or am I missing it?
Correct.
Okay.
Because
So,
we're analysts, right? So we
yes.
overanalyze everything, and I'm just thinking in the head of a overanalyzer.
Mhm. So, quick deviation here into decision making. It'll come back in this a little bit, but um, the key for decision making is to be prudent. And to be prudent in our decision making means that we are more likely to get the outcome that we want. And there are a few elements that go into prudent decision making, right? That it's focused on the right things at the right time and all of that. The first is foresight. So foresight is all about what do I expect to happen? And it doesn't mean that you're an oracle and you can predict the future. But what foresight is being able to use your experience of the past to see the patterns that have existed in the past and then have a reasonable expectation of what is probably going to happen in the future. And so in this case, if you know, there are times where I get overexcited and I get really into this rabbit hole, and that ends up not actually helping me solve the problem, but end up losing time on this problem. So if we know that pattern about ourselves, then we can use foresight to say that will probably happen again. So part of prudential decision making is foresight. What are the things that I know from my experience or patterns that are likely to occur again in the future? And then the second piece from that is well, from that, take us back to Elon's quote. The most common error of a smart engineer is to optimize a thing that should not exist, right?
Yeah, that was just a reply to AJ's,
Mhm.
statement saying that the problem stated may not be the real problem. So
Yeah, totally.
that's where it goes back to Elon's quote.
It
That's what I
does.
was. Yep.
Okay, so we've got this foresight, right? And so we need to be able to make plans for the things that we expect could happen. If I'm not planning for those things, if I know that there's a pattern in the team, in the organization, in my own behavior, and that pattern will likely cause a problem, and I don't make a plan for that, I'm being imprudent in my decision making. I'm not doing myself any favors, right? So being prudent in our decision making is constantly reflecting on what has happened, what has my experience told me about myself, about the team, about the organization? What are the patterns that I'm seeing? And what do I need to do differently moving forward based on the expectation that those patterns are going to happen again? There's more that goes into it because then we talk about volatility and all that, but I think keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this. And my hope is it will be helpful for you. But so far, does that make sense, Monica?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts about the principles themselves? Right. Cool. Um, And we're going to go through these for normally I spend a ton of time on each of these. And when I do a training on this, I do activities on all of them. We obviously don't have time for that here. So I'm going to kind of just go through them at a higher level. But if you have any questions about this or want to do more with it, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to meet with anyone and nerd out on this as much as you would like. So you will not bother me, I promise. Okay. So number one. Our job is to solve problems. We need to lean into it and pick the right problems, right? We might think, oh, we're here to solve problems. Just pick a problem and solve it. And sure, that's great. It's better than nothing. But we need to start getting good at understanding what is the right problem. And the right problems are always the things that are in our circle of influence. So I'm not going to go through a whole thing about circle of influence, but the idea here is if I can't influence the outcome, I shouldn't invest my time, energy, and effort in trying to change the outcome because by definition, that is wasted effort. So I really need to make sure if there's a problem I'm trying to solve, that I actually have an ability to tangibly and meaningfully influence that thing. Right? So I might have lots of opinions about problems at a federal level. In my work day to day, I don't spend a lot of time on that because that's not where my influence is highest. Right. It doesn't mean I don't care. It doesn't mean I'm not concerned. It doesn't mean I don't take steps that are within my influence that push in that general direction. But it is not the best use of my time to, you know, try to get a meeting with whoever because they sadly probably aren't going to listen to me. Right. So it's all about circle of influence. If we keep focusing on problems we can't solve, we're not doing ourselves any favors. What we really want to do here when we're being the most strategic is this second bullet right here. Get really good at solving the right problem at the right time with the least effort. That's what we want to do. If we're not solving the right problem at the right time with the least effort, then we run into lots of problems. And the idea here of solving problems, this is kind of the irony of it, is when you solve problems, your reward is bigger problems. Congratulations. You know how to solve problems? Here's a bigger problem. Solve that. You solved that one. Here's an even bigger one, right? So we don't want to avoid that because then we face the same problem. And this is my worst version of Groundhog Day that happens, right? We get the same problem over and over and over. We drive ourselves crazy. So we got to lean into problems. I don't think I need to convince anyone of that here. So we're going to move on. So preparation, this is where I'm going to spend a good chunk of time because preparation takes energy, effort, and resources. There's always a cost of organization, always. So we're going to talk about what that cost of organization is and ways to balance it. Okay. We are all just so busy. This is my literally everyone, because this is what I hear from literally, figuratively, but literally everyone. Whenever it's, well, what are we going to do? We got to spend some time. We got to do an offsite. We got to do a team session. We got to do a workshop, but we're just so busy. Sure. Right. What are we going to do about being so busy? Well, I hope it gets better. Then my next quote. Hope is not a strategy, right? Hoping for things to improve is not a strategy for making them better. So what we need to do is make sure that we are organized and prepared to solve the right problem in the right order. And we don't want to outsource that to AI. Hey, AI, what problem should I solve here? That's not what we want to do. So when we think about cost of organization, we always pay the cost of organization. It is an unavoidable cost we pay. We either pay for that cost in planning. We do a kickoff meeting, we do a team meeting. That is a cost. That planning then will help us, hopefully, be more aligned when we're doing the work. If we don't pay the cost of planning, we pay the cost of cleanup. Well, I thought you were going to do that. Well, wait, I didn't hear about that. Well, who was supposed to tell you? All the miscommunications that are downstream of not planning or not planning enough also have a cost. So you're always going to pay the cost of organization. It's either going to be in planning or cleanup. Planning is usually cheaper. So the question is not, should I plan or not? The question is, how do I decide how much planning and structure is the appropriate amount? We'll talk about that a little bit more. I saw some people unmute. So any questions or thoughts here?
I unmuted. It's David. I was just going to say, to me, before you have the cost of organization, the critical point is the cost of understanding, which is also a cost. But if you don't understand the problem you're trying to organize, people to, you don't have the right people, you can't have an intelligent discussion. So before you even try to solve the problem, you first have to understand the problem. And that's
Absolutely.
when you can then decide, is this the right problem to solve now? Who needs to be involved, etc. But that's also the thing that in my long career, I've seen skipped over so often is spending the time to understand what the problem is that we're supposedly trying to solve here.
Could not agree more. Right. And in my, as you'll see here, my pitch is to spend regular, consistent time planning as a group to be able to have those exact discussions. Do we actually understand what we're trying to do or not? If we don't protect time for having those conversations and we don't do it in an organized fashion, we're probably not going to be as successful. Totally agree. Okay. So we're going to pay the cost regardless. We can't avoid it. We can't be like, well, I don't have time for another meeting or what. Okay, well, then you've delayed payment and you're going to pay it with interest. That's all you've decided to do. Okay. So how do we determine how much to spend on organization? How much time do we spend planning and creating structure around something versus doing the work? Well, if you think about laundry, if you are a single person living alone and you own, 10 items of clothing total, you might be able to wash it, dry it, and then kind of leave it in the basket or leave it in a pile, and then just find what you need and get to work, get out the door, right? So the amount of time it takes to completely fold and then sort by color and size and all that for 10 pieces of clothing, that cost of organization is probably not worth it. You're probably not going to save any time on the back end. But once you get enough of a wardrobe, trying to store that wardrobe all in one pile, and you're trying to, get out the door in the morning, but you can't find the pants because you don't know where they are. Now the cost of setting that up, that takes a lot of effort up front, but I get value on the back end because when I need something, I know where it is. That's how cost of organization works. There is a point at which it's not worth setting things up. And then it gets complex enough, big enough, the scale is such that if I don't spend time to keep it organized, it's all going to fall apart on me. So with any project, any team, any problem or set of problems that we're trying to solve, if we're a team and we work on problems day to day and we only work on 3 of them, then maybe we don't even need to write them down. We're like, hey, here's our 3 today. You're doing this one, you're doing this one, I'm doing this one. We'll check in 2 hours. Cool. Fine. But if we're working on a massive project and we're running into dozens of issues and risks every day that we need to track and prioritize, we probably should spend some time documenting that because otherwise we're going to miss stuff, drop stuff, forget stuff, and it's going to be an even bigger problem than if we had just spent 30 minutes documenting it. My other example with this is books. If I own 5 books, I can probably just keep them in a pile and I'll be able to find the book I want. If I own a couple shelves worth of books, might be worth organizing by, author or keeping, fiction on the bottom shelf and not, nonfiction on the top shelf, whatever. I might put some organization into it, but that's it. I don't need to put a ton of thought into it because even with this many books, if I look at each individual book to try to find the one I need, it's still going to happen pretty fast, right? But at some point, I'm going to need the Dewey Decimal System, right? I can't just find what I need in the moment in the Library of Congress. That would be crazy. Now, does the Dewey Decimal System take a lot of time, effort to manage, maintain, run? Absolutely. Is it worth it at this scale? Absolutely, right? That does not mean that you should use the Dewey Decimal System in your home library. That would be a waste of time. So structure, organization, all of these things that help us track the problems that we're solving, it's all relative to what we're doing. And we need enough structure to support us and not so much structure that becomes overly burdensome. And it's how we balance that that helps set up the team for success. Right. Questions, thoughts, concerns about this organization piece for being prepared to solve problems?
So,
Jason, on the books, the biggest constraint is probably having. I don't have that kind of room to have a library card.
That's true.
That's the biggest issue, really.
Yes, yes. I couldn't fit that many books in my house either. There would be other constraints and bottlenecks we would run into. Absolutely. And then Manish?
yeah, so I was just thinking, I mean, things are so agile and quick and rapid, and the pace is so drastically fast nowadays with AI. So I do a lot of RAG and, coding, leveraging Claude Code and, integrating with my projects. So a lot of it, some of it was earlier manual. Now it's all 100% AI written code.
Mhm,
And I find that organization sometimes is an overhead because it stops my thinking.
mhm,
So, I mean, I'm not differing, I'm not disagreeing with what you said, but I've gone through this cycle and
mhm,
it says, what the heck, just binge code, you know,
mhm.
if that's a term. So binge
Yeah.
vibe code.
Yeah,
I
when
just
you're
made it
locked
up.
in, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
organizing it makes sometimes you lose. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's a large project, and you got to collect all your thoughts, put everything down properly, and then initiate it. But the way things go nowadays, it's so quick, and the attention spans are so narrow and small that
Hmm.
sometimes I feel that why am I organizing it? Because hey, I see the outcome right there. That oh, that didn't work. I have to try a different route or a different path,
Yeah.
and I immediately go. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that
So
that's the challenge.
the
Mhm.
question to ask is, am I happy with the results I'm getting?
Mhm.
If I am, I should keep doing what I'm doing. If I'm
Right.
not, I got to think about what I need to change.
Got it.
So if at some point you're noticing that you're missing stuff or forgetting stuff or skipping steps, you might think, ooh, maybe I need a little bit more structure, a little more check-in, right? So to
Mhm.
Monica's point earlier, if you find yourself going down rabbit holes, it's like, okay, I need some sort of check on this. I need to set a timer for an hour or 2 hours. So I can at least check and say, okay, do I want to keep going or not? Or am I still on the right path or not? There's needs to be some way to check myself because I know that my current habits are leading to an outcome that's not ideal for me or for the team.
Right.
And
Right.
so there is no right or wrong here. It's not like, well, you need to be more organized. If you're getting it done and it works for you and it works for the team that you're working for and the customer you're working with, great.
Mhm. So be it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah.
cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Great point. Thanks for bringing that up. And then AJ put in chat here, another cost of not being organized. Think people putting stuff in garages, basements, storage units, companies buying unnecessary storage capacity. Yes. If we're just moving, like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to unpack that. We'll deal with it later. Well, spoiler alert, no, you won't. And now we're paying for a cost of holding on to this thing that we don't even know what's in there, right? Excellent point. Great example, AJ. Okay. So we got to lean in to solve problems, make sure we're solving the right problem at the right time. We need to be organized because if we're not organized, we're not prepared. If I don't know what I'm working on and what my priorities are, and then new problems pop up and come in, I'm not able to make a good decision about which one to spend my time on because I'm not organized and prepared. If I'm not organized and prioritized, I can't be adaptive. How much structure should I have to be organized and prioritized? Completely depends on scope, scale, complexity, all of those things. Some projects you need like a project charter and then people to check in once a week. Some projects you need 17 control documents, a work breakdown structure, multi Excel tab risk issue log, right? Because that's what's necessary to make sure that the project is getting done. So there's no right or wrong. What's important is that you're thinking about, do I have the right level of structure and organization to help me be able to pivot and adapt and adjust? That's the whole thing. All right. Trade-offs, we're not going to talk about this a little bit. Okay. So, fundamental trade-off, you always pay the cost of organization, either in planning or cleanup. It's usually cheaper and far less painful when we pay it up front. So if we are always feeling like we've got to rush to the next problem, rush to the next problem, I'll document it later, I'll document it later, we're just delaying the pain. So we got to break that cycle of being reactive and make sure that we're being proactive to say how I'm going to spend my time today. Am I thinking that that's likely to be on the right problem with the right at the right time with the least effort? Okay. And then some ways to help balance that. The structure should support the team to go faster. The larger the team, the more formal. The smaller the team, the more informal. It shouldn't be zero, right? Those are some general principles as a starting point. If you got a team of three and you meet, 5 minutes in the morning, do your daily stand-ups, cool. If you're trying to, manage 80 people across 5 teams developing some sort of software implementation, you probably want a little more structure. Okay, number three, pull the right levers. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly here. Um, but once we are in the right mindset of we're here to solve problems and we're getting organized with the right amount of structure to help us choose which problems to solve, then we got to make sure that we're pulling the right levers to solve those problems. And Really, there are five. There are five things that I can do that will absolutely change the outcome. One is change how I spend my time. If I spend my time on this problem instead of that problem, I'm going to get a different result. If I spend more time on research and less time on uh, building, I will get a different result. Maybe that's a better result. Maybe it's not, but it will be different, right? If I develop different relationships with different people, that's going to change my result. Right? So, how much time do I spend relationship building? Which relationships am I investing in? Which relationships am I cultivating? How do I organize my team and my structure? This is one that I often say you should pull last. Don't ever say, "Hey, we have a problem. Let's try a reorg." All right? Reorgs can be very effective, but I would not start there. We can change the process. Like we talked about earlier, David brought up, do we really need all these process steps? What is the process itself? What processes do we focus on? Which ones do need to be optimized and automated? Which ones should be eliminated? And then we can also just change our target. What are we trying to achieve? If we change any one of those five, if we pull any one of those levers and shift those things, we will get a different result. And so when I'm trying to solve a problem, I want to think about which of these five levers or combination of them is most likely to get me my desired result. We need to be shifting how we spend our time. We need to really build a relationship in this area with this team or this customer. We really need to improve this one process because it's bottlenecking us, right? Or we're going after the wrong results. We got to do different things. So I got to be aware that I can do these things strategically and get outsized results. I can change other stuff, but it's less likely to have an outsized impact. I'm going to have the highest ROI or potential ROI when I change one of these five things. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but any questions or thoughts about pulling the right lever or anything that I can help clarify about this?
This seems very similar. Like I'm thinking of the SMART goals.
Mhm.
Like, when you were mentioning all of this, I was like, well, yeah, you want it to be specific, measurable, and all of this stuff. So it's almost like that's what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. So it's not vague. It's not a generic, and there's not going to lead you down a path where you can go in so many different directions.
Exactly, right. Not vague, not ambiguous. It's all about being strategic, really, at the end of the day, is about being intentional with action and intentional with reflection. What am I trying to do? What action am I going to take? What's my expected result? That's all the intention. And then afterwards, looking back and saying, what did I expect to happen? What actually happened? What did I learn? What do I want to do differently? If you start doing that more, you're going to improve, improve, improve. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts, reflections, or clarification? All right. One other thing about strategy here is this is based on something called the organizational development pyramid. So organizational development or industrial organizational psychology is kind of the field that all modern consulting is based on. And one of the original tools, maybe one of the first ones in modern organizational development, was called the leadership or the strategy pyramid. And we've changed it to be this Venn diagram, and I'll explain why here in a second. But the idea is that you've got 3 points of this pyramid, or three areas: strategy, people, and operations. And they are tied together through leadership. Sometimes we call that governance. And so we need to understand, what is the strategy that is guiding who we are, where we're going? How do we use that strategy to have the people know where to go, what they're trying to achieve, why they're here? And then how do we create operational systems that enable the people to more efficiently do the work that they need to do to get to that goal or that strategy? And then governance is really how do we make sure each of those functions is functioning well? We've got clarity of strategy, we've got the right culture and environment for the people, and we are focused on investing in the right systems and structure that support the people, right? And AI is part of that operations piece. And so, do we have all of those and are they integrating well together? So when I'm trying to be strategic in my thinking and I'm seeing these problems, this is a really good check as well, is which of these areas is the problem in, or where is the problem in the intersection of some of these areas? And what do we need to shift to be able to actually resolve this at a systems level, so to speak? So I'll say a little bit more about this, but if you have questions, just throw them in chat. So a couple things about each of these areas. Each of them has a primary skill and a primary goal. So the skill of strategy is planning, getting really good at planning, right? Plans are useless. Planning is essential. I need to get really, really good at being able to do that, that foresight, that foreshadowing based on my experience. What do I think is going to happen? And then from that planning, I should have a clarified identity and direction. This is who we are, what we're trying to do, the direction we're trying to go in. With people, we've got the primary skill of communication. How well do we communicate, collaborate? How healthy and productive is our conflict? It's all about that interaction and communication. And the goal of that is to create the right culture. Right? There's no one size fits all culture, but we want to make sure we have the right culture that empowers the team to do what it needs to do to reach the goal. Different goals will have radically different cultures, and that's fine. I do not want my HR team to have the same look and feel as my IT team. They are doing different functions. They should have different cultures. I'm cool with that, right? And then operations is all about prioritizing. How well do I prioritize what things to do in what order? And the whole goal of efficient operations is efficiently allocate capital. What's my ROI? How do I help people be faster? And then leadership, right, is governance all coming together. So AJ, you put in chat here, I think AI is part of the intersection of all. I would tell me more about that if you don't mind. You can tell I have an initial reaction, but tell me more.
Sure, because it can be part of the operations, executive wanting us to embrace AI. Obviously, it's part of the skill set, so that's why I think it's part of the people. And then the
Mm,
strategy, again, it's like the directive from leadership asking us to embrace it. So that's why I think it's component of all
mm,
three and not just operation.
okay. Yeah, so there definitely are strategies around it and so I can see where you're coming from with that. I would say uh the implementation, the place that AI as a tool is best utilized is in trying to achieve this goal of efficiently allocating capital. If we use AI as a tool to help us clarify our identity and direction, we're probably going to get more AI slop. If we use it to try to tell us, hey, what should our culture be? What should our team norms be? Create my strategic plan, create my values list. If I'm using it to generate things in those other areas, I'm more likely to run into problems when I'm using it as a tool. I can definitely see how it plays a role in some of these areas and in the governance piece, especially. But that's where I think it shines the most and is the least risky when used in the operations sphere, I guess is what I would say. I don't know if that makes sense, or if you disagree, AJ, please
No,
jump in.
that's a good point. Like I said, it's like I'm seeing it in all three,
Mhm.
but where it should be is something different.
Fair enough.
So,
Yeah,
so yeah, I'm in line with you.
cool. Great point, though. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, one more thing about this. When we're creating documentation, this is just kind of how it breaks down across those things. That's more if you're creating a strategic plan, how different pieces of strategic plans should integrate together. I won't go through that too much because I only have a few more minutes here. I want to get to this final piece. Okay, um, sharing the outcomes. So we can't do anything alone, and this is where people really get tripped up. because people really care about their work. They're very invested, and they end up trying to save the project from their team or save the project from their leadership. And that ends up biting people in where they don't want to be bitten. I'll just say that. So when we're doing anything with a team, when we're collaborating, we really need to ask ourselves the question with any function we are in charge of, is that my decision to make? If it is my decision to make, congratulations, you have authority. You need to act with clear authority. If it is not your decision to make, congratulations, you are an advisor. And it is your job not to make the decision or convince the person with authority that they should agree with you. Your job is to advise them and then respect that it's their decision and not yours. We don't want to get in a situation where we are trying to fight with an authority where we don't have authority, because that's a power struggle and we have no power. We're going to lose. So we need to have crystal clear lines of engagement about authority, right? This is where, if you're doing your RACI diagrams, who has the authority for the decision? Who's responsible for the implementation, right? Authority, responsibility. Responsibility is responsible for the implementation. They are, the R on that line is always the advisor to the A, always. Always. So how does this work? Well, we have an authority and they make decisions, and they need to give clear direction, boundaries, and intent to the implementation team. If you're the authority and you're not giving clear direction, boundaries, and intent to the implementation team, that team can't be successful, right? That is your responsibility as the authority, is to provide that clear direction. If you're in the implementation team, you also have a responsibility, and that's to provide clear input, feedback, and recommendations. If an authority makes a bad decision and you just go, nah, all right, that's not going to work, but you don't tell them, the failure of that is as much on you, if not more on you, than on the authority. Now, if you tell them, hey, that's probably not going to work and here's why, and the authority says, I've heard you, but I'm deciding to do that anyway, then great. You've done your job. They've done their job. You're probably right. It's probably going to fail, but that's how this thing works. But we need to inform people so they have the opportunity to make better decisions. And the only way that this works well is when we're getting clearer decisions with better information in the feedback loop, and that these are functioning well. All teams and organizations that are highly effective do this feedback loop well. All of the ones that struggle, one or both of these arrows is broken, and we're not getting the right information flow for whatever reason. We can't think strategically as a team if we don't have the right information flowing, because I don't have the information I need as an implementer to do the right things, or I don't have the information as an authority to be able to make better decisions. So if those things are broken, it's going to be a rough go of it. So, and we get expert advisors. So we've got decision-making authority. They have to provide clear direction, boundaries, and intent. The implementation team needs to provide clear input, feedback, and recommendations. And we have to have a clear structure and cycle for that. I know I'm 1 minute over, so that's okay, Larry. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your input. Last thing here, I got some steps in here, and if you want to nerd out on these at any point, please let me know. I'm happy to do it. But this is where we started. Lots of chaos. We don't want to throw AI into that chaos. That's gasoline on the fire, literally. So what do we want? When we're able to do these 4 steps really, really well, what does that look like? How is that different as an experience? Number 1, the team knows why they are here, where the organization is going, and what their role is in making that happen. We have clarity. The team can then figure out what problems to solve in what order and update leadership on the status with clear recommendations for any changes. Then leadership, whatever we call leadership, can meet to evaluate the progress, address obstacles, make decisions about how to allocate time. and then they communicate those decisions back to the team. And this cycle is much more functional. And then we can use AI as a tool to improve any one of these steps or the connection points between them. But now we are using AI to support a sustainable strategic process, not trying to use AI to dig ourselves out of an unsustainable, hyper-reactive process. So that's the idea. That's where the principles are coming from. That's kind of the foundation. I hope this was interesting for you and it gave you something of value. So that's it. The end. Yay.
And awesome. Thank you, Jason. We still have, a couple minutes if anybody has any questions or comments before we get into the raffle. Let me just go in to share my screen.
And like I said, if anyone has other follow-up questions, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to, meet with anyone, chat it up.
Okay, just a really quick, I want to stop the recording. Where do I do that? Stop recording.